Good evening and welcome to the August 26th North Idaho College Board of Trustees meeting. I call the meeting to order. I'm going to ask you all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And in keeping with our tradition, tonight, if I could have Trustee Meyer read our mission statement. Give you time to get your
Thank you,
glasses.
Chrissy. North Idaho College meets the diverse educational needs of students, employers, and the Northern Idaho communities. It serves through a commitment to student success, educational excellence, community engagement, and lifelong learning.
Thank you, Trustee Meyer. And I will verify we do have a quorum tonight. All board members are present. And we do have an amendment to the agenda. Board, we would like to add, if I have that in writing, Dr. Dunlap.
This position, we'd like to add this.
Okay, thank you. We'd like to add under, if I could have a motion to this regard, we'd like to add under new business, the disposition of our River Run property. Could I have a motion for that?
Madam Chair, I move that we add this item to the agenda, and we're having to add it because we just learned about it in the last 24 hours, so we couldn't put it on there before that.
That's correct, thank you. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Trustee Howard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, all right, we've amended our agenda. That takes us to reviewing the minutes. Are there any questions, concerns, or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, we will accept the minutes as written. Takes us to public comment, and we do have a guest this evening, and it looks like it's Karen Hansen, is that correct? Karen, please come to the podium, welcome tonight.
You might tell her what the ground rules are.
Okay. And Karen, I don't, oh, this is in
Regarding the
reference to the alley easement.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. And you understand that it has to be an agenda item, in which it is, and we do ask you to try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I understand that you guys have the pictures that I sent to you that were in question, and I understand that you guys have discussed it ahead of time, and you know what I'm here for, so to save some time. And I just wanted to mention that historically, I think the reason that the whole situation arose is historically, each landowner on either side of an alley is supposed to dedicate a portion of the alley. In this case, the property owners on Military dedicated half the alley. The other property owner, which was, for the longest time I can remember, was the Robin Hood Trailer Park. For some reason it got overlooked and they didn't dedicate their portion. So that's why I'm here, is to, now that NIC is the new owner, to dedicate the alley, because you can see there's an alley there and it used to go all the way to River. And then all of a sudden one day it just magically disappeared. And then you guys were awesome enough to put in the turnaround space that you can see right there underneath the word lot in the middle of the page. You put a turnaround spot there for the garbage trucks because the garbage truck couldn't back out all that way. So I'm just here tonight because you guys, from what I understand, you've already agreed that you would restore the alley the way it was for years and years and years, and that's to go all the way back through to River. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you, Karen, and this
Okay.
is an agenda item. It's up very shortly, and so we will be discussing everything that you have just shared with us. Appreciate the time that you took to provide us the information.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, that takes us to our Celebrating Success Area Agency on Aging, Jeffrey Hill.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Trustees, President Dunlap, members of the President's Cabinet, community, and colleagues. We are absolutely delighted to be here this evening to share with you our celebration of success at the Area Agency on Aging and to share with some information with you. I want to introduce you to some of the key individuals at the agency, and we have some great and dedicated individuals. Ryan Shepard is our Community Services Program Director. Back here we have Bob Small is our RSVP Program Director, and Marilyn Anders is our Fiscal and Contracts Manager.
Welcome.
So with that, we have the great task and opportunity to serve all 5 northern counties, and we are one of 5 area agencies on aging in the state of Idaho. We do have a short video that we'd like to present to you to give you a quick overview of our agency or some of the programs and services that we do that was produced by the Administration on Aging and Health and Human Services. So we'll go ahead and do that now.
Know an older family member, friend, or neighbor who might need a little extra assistance at home? What about a home-delivered meal, a ride to a doctor's appointment, assistance with light chores around the house, information about local activities for seniors? The Elder Care Locator can connect you with these types of community resources and more. When you call 1-800-677-1116, you'll speak with an information specialist who has heaps of information about community agencies that help older adults and people with disabilities. Even if you live in Portland, Oregon, and you want to find out about programs and services for your father in Miami, Florida, call the Elder Care Locator and they can help. When you call, an information specialist will listen to what kind of programs or assistance you're looking for and connect you with the agency in your area that makes the most sense. Like your Area Agency on Aging, Aging and Disability Resource Center, State Office on Aging, or other trusted resource. The agencies will tell you about community resources that help make it easier for older adults to stay in their homes and communities as they age, like home-delivered meals, group meals, rides to the store or doctor's appointment, in-home support, like help managing medicines or help with chores. You can learn about housing assistance, from resources for basic home repairs to help getting a grab bar or wheelchair ramp installed. You can also learn about what housing alternatives are available in your area. For caregivers, local agencies can inform you of local support programs, adult daycare centers, as well as what types of respite care is available. For older adults who are eager to get even more involved in their community, find out about potential opportunities to volunteer. Take classes like yoga, ballroom dancing, or computer classes. Even find out about employment options in your area. What else might they be able to help you with, you ask? How about information on local legal resources, elder abuse prevention, health insurance counseling, navigating benefits programs, assistance coordinating services, help managing finances, and more. By just dialing 11 numbers on your phone, 1-800-677-1116, a world of information on aging and disability resources is available to you. But that's not all. Do you have access to a computer, tablet, or smartphone? Just visit www.eldercare.gov for even more resources, including an agency directory. Chat with an information specialist online, download brochures or fact sheets, and learn about other helpful, trusted, national resources for older adults and people with disabilities. The Elder Care Locator, connecting you to a wealth of community services.
So hopefully that gives you a kind of a quick oversight of what we provide at the agency, and we work in partnership with the Elder Care Locator. If someone were to call that number, they would patch that number directly to our agency, so we could help anyone. I want to just give you a quick overview of the agency that we're authorized by the Older Americans Act. We're designated by the Idaho Commission on Aging, which is located in Boise, and then of course we are grateful that we are sponsored with our umbrella agency, North Idaho College. The bulk of our funding comes from the Older Americans Act and the Idaho Senior Services Act. We have some nutrition dollars that come from the Nutrition Services Incentive Program. And then the Corporation for National and Community Service, that money is used for our Retired and Senior Volunteer Program. The mission of our agency is to work in partnership with older adults, families, and the community to secure information and services that maximize independence and quality of life. And that ties right into our vision statement, which is dedicated to the protection, independence, and dignity of individuals through advocacy and service. And what this means is if we have a senior in the community, we want to be able to provide them the necessary resources and the services so those individuals can stay at home as long as possible so they don't have to go into a retirement home, assisted living, or skilled nursing facility. Basically, what our agency does, we try to be a one-stop shop where we have information and assistance, where we have resources and other information that we can help seniors and their families. We have our care transition program that we work with Kootenai Health. That's where if a senior goes to the hospital, we have a program to help them so they don't be readmitted back to the hospital after they return home. We have our Adult Protection Services program, our Ombudsman program, which works with nursing homes and assisted living facilities to ensure the rights of those individuals that live there, and then our Retired Senior and Senior Volunteer program. Some of the contracted services that we do, we have meal services. We contract with nearly 17 other senior service centers in the 5 northern Idaho counties. We have Family Caregiver Respite, which basically is a service. If someone is taking care of their loved one, we can send someone in to relieve them so they can get the necessary time away from taking care of that individual. We have homemaker assistance where we can help provide homemaking services and light chore services, as well as transportation services. Who qualifies? Seniors that are 60 years or older. And then, of course, we also have the task of taking care of those vulnerable adults 18 years and older. Some of our partners in the community, although I can't list them all, of course, is Kootenai Health. We work with Panhandle Health, the area Aging and Long-Term Care of Eastern Washington. That is Spokane's area agency on aging. And then the senior centers, Alzheimer's Association, in the various counties. Just to give you some quick facts to show what our agency does, the square miles that we have to deal with is about 8,000 square miles, with the population there that you see of those 60 and older at nearly 51,000. The meals that we were able to help the senior centers provide to individuals in our community was nearly 60,000 meals at the senior centers. And for those seniors that were homebound and cannot get out to get a meal, we do home delivered meals or Meals on Wheels. And as you can see there, we delivered nearly 56,000 meals there. We do adult protection services. We investigated 471, and the unfortunate part of this fact is that only about 1 out of 25 alleged cases are actually reported in the state of Idaho. So that's one of the things that we're focusing on as an agency, is to get out in the community, educate the communities, especially the small ones. Today we were up in Clark Fork or Fernwood because we need to teach those seniors and those individuals what to report, how to notice abuse, and how to timely report so we can go out and investigate those. We have the Family Caregiver Respite, which I touched based on, that we provided nearly 7,000 hours of relief to. Information awareness, we had nearly 4,000 calls, or a little over 4,000 calls come into our agency. Our ombudsman visit, a lot of people don't know what ombudsman is. An ombudsman, it actually came from a Swedish term, but it's a program where we have individuals go into nursing homes and assisted living facilities to ensure the rights of those individuals in those homes, that their rights are being protected and that they're getting the services that they actually pay for. They have an advocate. We actually have 3 individuals in our office that run that program, but the amazing thing is that we have anywhere between 13 and 16 active volunteers that go through a very rigorous training program. They go into these facilities unannounced, different times of the day, to make sure that those services are really being provided. Transportation services, we have a couple of different contracts with various counties, and we were able to provide almost 10,000 rides for seniors to go to the doctors or to go to a meal. And then our outreach and public information, which we're doing actually like tonight, we were able to present to nearly 4,000 individuals. One of the other programs that we have is our Retired and Senior Volunteer program. This is a fantastic program, and I'm excited about this program because we have 527 volunteers in our area. Now, just to put that in comparison, there are 5 other area agencies on aging. The next one that even comes closest to us is the Idaho Falls area. They have 240. So that tells you what great people we have in this community. Donated nearly 81,000 hours, and the economic impact to our communities is 1.6 million, so that is huge, and we are very happy about that. So with that, that gives you a quick overview of our agency. We are absolutely delighted to be part of NIC. Although we don't receive direct funding from NIC, we do receive administrative help from the business office, administration, human resources, and other facets in the college, and we could not operate without your services. We are grateful to be a part of you, and we thank you. And if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them or let any of my staff answer those for you.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful presentation. Board, are there questions? Trustee Banducci.
Not a question, just a comment. As I was speaking with your colleagues earlier, as you know, my wife's one of your ombudsmen.
Yes, I do.
You guys are doing a great work. As an advocate for these folks, it's essential, I think, what you're doing, because there's so many people that have nobody to represent them or to help them. And so they are the vulnerable.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you're doing.
Trustee Howard. Oh, Trustee Meyer.
Actually, I just wanted to make a comment and thank you for the presentation. Every year at budget time, you know, we go over the budgets of the Area Agency on the Aging as well as Head Start, are the two entities that we are fiscal agent for. But this is a great opportunity for the public at large, because this is televised, to see the good work that you folks do and the important function that you serve in our community. So thank you very much for coming and putting on the presentation tonight.
You bet. Thank you, sir.
Trustee Meyer.
To follow up on that, you mentioned that there is a local phone number that folks can use, and I don't see it posted here. Is it in the phone book, and how do folks find you?
Yes, ma'am, it is, and it's also on our website and Facebook.
And do you know that number off the top of your head?
I do not know the number right off the top of my head. I will be honest with you.
But it sounded like if you called the number that I wrote down, you'll get directed.
Right, I was just
Yes,
trying
ma'am.
to realize that it's a local group and the local folk can respond.
If I may, Judy, too, and if anybody ever had any questions, I'm sure Babette would be happy to help out.
Yep. Well, it's a great organization, very valuable.
Trustee Nielsen.
What can this college do to help? This is a college that works very hard about raising money and giving back to this community, and I'm unfortunate. I have a mother that's in the Alzheimer's wing, and I go visit her a couple of times a week, and probably 1 out of 10 times that I go there, there's somebody visiting one of these Alzheimer patients, and they lack the ability to communicate because they don't practice, because nobody's talking to them. Is there anything this institution could do to help participate in going and visiting these type of people, and you would have an army of people to go out and do that? Is there something we could do?
Absolutely. What the college is doing now obviously helps us, but if anybody wanted to become a volunteer, they can contact Bob Small back here. He would be an individual. We also, again, we need volunteers. We need more ombudsman volunteers to go into the nursing facilities and retirement facilities, as well as just generally volunteering in our Friendship Corps. There is a vast opportunity there, so anything like that we would be grateful for.
I had a question for Dr. Burns. Are there opportunities through our healthcare programs for internships for credit with this agency?
The nursing program in the past had actually set up a project. I wouldn't necessarily call it an internship, but it was a project that was a part of the credit they earned towards their geriatric preparation. And it was quite successful and provided the students an opportunity to really understand the world that our older adults live in and their desire to remain at home. So the students formed a relationship based on selection by the Area Agency on Aging of individuals who would like to have visits from someone and have that connection. And they conducted, first of all, they conducted an assessment of the individual's home, and then they engaged in conversation to learn more about their life and their experiences. And then the students were required then to write a plan of care that would assist those individuals in remaining in their home for a number of years. To be honest with you, I'm not sure where that experience has gone at this point, but certainly it was a very successful program when we instituted it.
Great. Well, maybe it will rise again.
Actually, we are actively in that program. We did it last semester, and we did the semester before, and it's wonderful to see the students. They come back. We get to go meet the students before the program starts, and then afterwards, and to hear the experiences that they come up with, it's just very moving. And it enlightens the students. It lets them know really what they're going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
That's great. Well, I think the feedback from the board is very positive, that we're actually think it's very fitting that we're an umbrella organization for you. You definitely belong with North Idaho College, so you can help serve the community, and really appreciate the time you took to come and show our community all the services available.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Board, that takes us to another wonderful presentation, and we have a guest this evening that's well known to all of us, Citizens Council for Arts and Art on the Green, Sue Flamia. Welcome.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, President Dunlop, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We wanted to give an updated report about our partnership with Art on the Green and the festival, and a little bit about how things are going. And I wanted you to meet Carol Stacy, who is the president of Citizens Council for the Arts that sponsors Art on the Green, and Steve Ruppel, who is our liaison between Citizens Council and North Idaho College. We have had an ongoing partnership since the very earliest days when we were forming the arts organization. In fact, as I was thinking about tonight, I remember that Barry Schuler, one of the past presidents of North Idaho College, was one of the incorporators and always a longtime supporter, and that established that partnership that carries through to today. I believe that we all benefit. The people love coming to your beautiful campus. It is so spectacular. And the comments from the artists is always affirmative. They love coming here. It is such a treat to be there. It's very, very beautiful, and of course having the water close by, it's really, really wonderful. There were 170 artists who had booths this year. It's the largest number of artists we've had. And in addition to that, we have the juried show, and I believe there were close to 90 entries in the juried show. They're separate units of the festival. And I wanted to mention one of the ways in which we all help one another is that we produce a poster. We have a contest every year. Everybody is welcome to, everyone is open to participate. I was told, hold this up so they can see it. And this is the poster from this 2015 festival. And it always mentions on the grounds of North Idaho College. Many, many years ago, we started a particular purchase prize to build an art collection for North Idaho College. And it's called the President's Award. And always the president and members of the staff come to the festival. They select the item, the artwork, and when you go in the library, you'll see many, many items that have been selected over the many years throughout the campus. There are beautiful artworks selected through the juried show. The college selects it, and the Citizens Council pays for it. So it's a win-win all the way around. So I brought tonight a picture, and this is President Dunlop with the artist, and this is the newest piece in the NIC permanent collection. And it's a complex procedure. You want to hold that? Yeah. It's a complex procedure this artist used, and the artwork is beautiful, very, very unusual. It's a terrific addition. We've also partnered with other artists. We've done workshops, and if you look in the foyer of the Boswell Hall, you'll see beautiful enamel panels. That was a workshop where we invited Harold Blaze to come and work with NIC students and members of the art department. We have helped with the stage. That beautiful concrete quilt that's in front of the stage, that was another art project that we've done. So you see, throughout the years, we have had an ongoing, very close partnership with North Idaho College that we treasure, we appreciate. And I would urge you now, right now at the gallery in Boswell Hall, there is a beautiful exhibit that is sponsored by Art on the Green, and we have two longtime artists, and the paintings and prints. And we work with the staff of the art department of North Idaho College, and we want an exhibit there for when the students come back. And then we also pay for the art department to bring in a guest artist during the spring. So you see, this has been going on for many, many years, and I thought you would like to know about that because it works as a wonderful community-college relationship that we really appreciate. So Steve wants to say a couple words.
I'm a very junior member of this team. These are very senior members that are here before you and founders, and owe them a debt of gratitude. I got a chance to work up close through the winter and spring with the organizing committee, and I think what really stands out is the volunteerism, the numbers and the quality and the no-nonsense attitude of the volunteers that come forward in the community, literally hundreds of them to staff the festival. And I think it was also interesting to work this year with Graydon and his staff, Kim Browning, with Bill McElver from Facilities and Justin Van Eaton. And the response of these groups working together was wonderful this year. And there were some concerns that came up through putting the festival on because there were some changes in the Art on the Green Committee and there were some changes at NIC, as there always are. But it came together beautifully, and it's just a testament to how quickly things can come together when people have a common goal. So I thoroughly enjoyed working with you all this year and up close. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's wonderful information, and I know the board's anxious to ask some questions. Trustee Howard.
Actually, I want to express a thank you, Sue, and I hope you will carry back to your organization from this board and from the college our appreciation of everything that you do, because you enhance NIC. In this community, for weeks before Art on the Green, people are saying, when is Art on the Green going to be? I've got to get to Art on the Green. I've got to arrange my schedule so I can go to Art on the Green. It's one of those things that this community looks forward to every year, and it's just a great addition to our community. So I hope you take our thank you back to your group and make sure that they understand our appreciation.
Thank you so much, and we definitely will carry that message back. Thank you.
Trustee Meyer.
Long history, Sue, and it's delightful to have you here helping us appreciate it again. And I think when we have a board meeting and so we're televised and the community can learn more about it, that's really important too, because I think that this partnership represents what community colleges are all about. That's sharing with the community, and it's synergistic. And after, 40-some years now, 41-ish, are we?
47.
Yeah, okay, 47, that pretty soon we'll be at half a century, and then we'll head for a century. Thanks for your good work.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Dunlap.
Sue, thank you for being here, and we clearly appreciate the partnership. And while my selection of the juried art this year was called into question by one of our trustees with regard to my taste in art, that former attorneys will go unnamed. But I do want to ask you a question, because I know you have a role in this, and that is that the sculpture of Chief Antelope that will be installed on campus, do you have a sense of the timing of that? It's being done through the city and partnership with the tribe and the development of a sculpture. And I thought that the Council of the Arts was a part of that.
President Dunlap, I think that might be the City Arts Commission.
Okay, I was mistaken there.
Right,
Thank you.
right.
Yeah.
But we're glad for all art that is being placed in the community, you know.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for your kind words about the campus. We obviously, as trustees, feel the same way and believe that this campus belongs to all residents of Kootenai County, and we love to share it off. It's theirs. And so Art on the Green is just a focal point every year. And as Judy said, we look forward to another almost 50 years. We'll just go on to infinity. Trustee Howard.
Since I went unnamed, I wanted to defend myself. There were a half a dozen ones I think he should have picked.
Nice problem to have.
And he only picked one.
And Steve, so nice to see you back at the podium after your retirement. We love it that you can't stay away. Very good. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, Board, that takes us to our constituent reports, and everybody is here tonight, first day back from the summer break, and so, great, we're going to meet some new faces. We met you, but now we get to hear from you. All right, first up, ASNC, Maria Paluzzi, right? Is it Paluzzi? Is that correct? Okay, welcome.
Well, hi. I was going to introduce myself, but thank you, Christy. You did that for me. But I just want to start off by saying how extremely humbled I am just to be able to speak in front of all of you and finally get to see all of you. And I'm looking forward to being able to get to know you all better. And, of course, everyone here. On behalf of ASNC, I can say that we are very excited to start working on projects to help better NIC and the community. Prior to school starting, we were able to accomplish having a full board, and I love the team that we have this year and have complete trust in all the new senators and their abilities to achieve our goal and help making NIC awesome. We've started conversations about working with the ASNC Constitution and revising that, and there has been talk about having another awesome Thanksgiving dinner to help include the community that cannot have that for themselves. I'm especially excited to start learning more and helping with the creation of the Student Recreation and Wellness Center. I'm excited because I'm ready to learn more about that and be involved. And I'm overall just excited for what this year has in store.
Very nice. Board, any questions for Maria? Oh, Trustee Banducci, and then I'll get to you, Dr. Dunlap. Go ahead.
Hi, Maria.
Hi.
You mentioned you got a full staff there. Now, I printed off the election results in April, and you had Colin as your vice president, so he's there. And then you had 5 senators. Now, did it work out that all 7 of you were here and ready and moving forward, or did you have to make any substitutions?
No, we were all ready in here. We did make one substitution. Sammy Lohman was not able to continue on because she decided she wanted to leave at semester, so she thought she would let someone else have the opportunity, and we were able to have 2 more members, Amber Keel and Rachel Hines, are 2 new members that we have.
So do you have 6 senators then?
We do. We are starting on having another senator, Michael Camerino, on board. We're still in the process of getting him involved.
Okay, I'll get a list later then. I just wanted to update and
Yeah.
get the list so we know who everybody was. How many senators will you end up with then? That would give you, what, 7?
Yes, we will have 7.
Very good.
Dr. Dunlap.
Maria, as part of the Welcome Back festivities, do I understand correctly that you are missing the luau cruise on the lake tonight? You graciously are giving that up to be here?
Yes, I am, but I know they're all having me there in spirit, and I wouldn't want to miss out on meeting all of you lovely people, so.
Well, you tell them to bring the boat back to the dock because you have time to get there. That's dedication and leadership. We appreciate that. Board, any further questions for Maria? Comments? Well, thank you. We
you.
appreciate that you chose us.
Thank you.
That takes us to Staff Assembly. Jessica Grantham.
Good evening, Madam Chair, trustees, President Dunlap, members of President Cabinet, and guests. Staff Assembly kicked off the year with our annual picnic in July. I wanted to thank Eddie with Food Services for the delicious hamburgers. Jess Bennett opened up the zip line for staff to take a spin on. That was quite exhilarating. And then I also wanted to thank our staff members because they do a potluck for side dishes and desserts for this, and there are some fantastic dishes this year. Our live entertainment this year was a rousing round of musical chairs, and that was very, very fun. We had karaoke in the past, and we switched it up a little bit. With staff gearing up for fall semester and supporting our incoming students, our Staff Assembly Executive Committee decided to forego an August meeting. We are looking forward to our first meeting in September and have made a couple format changes to those meetings based on some responses to our Staff Assembly feedback survey that we administered in July. Finally, we're working with staff committee chairs to review and fill any committee vacancies that are coming forward this year. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
All right. Trustees, any questions? Well, you could probably make the boat ride too if you Thank you.
Thank you.
Faculty Assembly, Erin Davis.
Good evening, Madam Chair, President Dunlap, trustees, members of President's Cabinet, and guests. Before I give my report, I just wanted to say that it's a point of pride in the English department that rumor has it our ASNIC chair is also an English major. So I'm very excited.
Very nice.
So we're 3 days into the academic year here at NIC, and it's been wonderful for faculty to be back in the classroom interacting with students. I have to admit that I was probably feeling a lot like my students on Sunday night, a little grumpy, a little nervous. But all it takes is being back in the classroom and working with students again to get that energy back. Faculty Assembly met on Thursday, August 20th, last Thursday. At that meeting, President Dunlap and Vice President Burns were our guests. President Dunlap spoke to us about the proposed new reduction in forces policy and procedure, and both he and Dr. Burns fielded questions from faculty on this topic. The RIF policy is something that many faculty worked long and hard on a few years ago, and we have taken it up at the beginning of the school year this year at the request of our president. We very much appreciate President Dunlap seeking faculty input and his willingness to come to our meeting and engage with us on this important topic. He and I have had a few meetings about it in the weeks before classes began, and this week I've been gathering input from faculty on the policy and procedure that he has proposed to us. Tomorrow, an ad hoc faculty committee will meet to put that faculty feedback into some kind of cohesive, readable response, and we hope to be able to give that to President Dunlap at the end of the week so that he can prepare to move the policy to College Senate. Also this week, I will be sending out a committee survey form to all faculty so that we can fill all of the faculty spots on our college committees, and I'm hoping to be able to send the faculty committee placements to the president's office in a few weeks so that those committees can get up and running by the end of September. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Board, any questions for Erin?
Okay, thank you.
I hope we have a great kickoff to the year. Thanks, Erin. All right, that takes us to Senate. John Trombold, welcome.
Chair, members of the board, members of the cabinet, and everyone, good evening. I do not have very much to report tonight as chair of the College Senate because we have not yet met, and we will meet in September after the assemblies have met. So I'm happy to report there's not much to report. But I will say that I'm looking forward to the year and to policy review. Not everyone always does, but it can be an engaging process, and the College Senate, which includes faculty, staff, and student representatives, is an important agent for shared governance at the college. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Board, did you have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Just for clarification, is this, they use the term shared governance as a participatory governance, so just, is that not true, Mr. Dunlap?
The terms are used interchangeably in higher education, and what it means is that there is an opportunity for employees at all levels to provide input into decision-making processes.
But just for purposes of clarification, there's a difference between shared and participatory level of participation. So I just wanted to make sure that when we talk about a shared, that means that we want their input, we want that, but at the end of the day, the decision is made here. Is that not true?
Well, that's true. There is well, it's not necessarily made here. I mean, it may be made at the cabinet level, it may be made at the dean level. It depends on what level of decision we're talking about. But at every single level, employees, whether they are faculty or staff, are given an opportunity to provide input to the decision makers.
And I agree with that.
Okay. And I think historically, those terms have become interchangeable. At least since my tenure here, since 2004, I've certainly heard shared governance as much as participatory.
And for purpose of clarification, we will clarify those statements and make sure that we get, when we have this RIF policy in place, well-defined, so that we need to define words that are crossing over and we use them together. We need to be able to clarify those in there. And I've had the opportunity to read through about 10 of the RIF policies at some of the community colleges, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Dunlap.
Madam Chair, trustees, and colleagues, good evening. Well, school got off to a great start this week on Monday, and we're happy to report that we had planned on a 10% reduction in enrollment just for budget purposes, and thus far enrollment is down 3.8% with regard to head count and 6% with regard to FTE. And one strategy that has been put in place this year that is different from what we've done in the past is that we no longer will drop students for non-payment on the drop day, because what has happened in the past is we drop students pay, we have to re-enroll them, some of those don't pay, and then they get lost. And so the process we've put in place now is that if a student misses the payment day, then the business office will work with those students so that they have an opportunity to pay in full by the end of the semester. And should they not, the consequence is they would not be allowed to register for a spring semester, and there would be a placement on their transcripts. And this will avoid a considerable amount of work, and I think it'll provide a smoother transition for students as well, and we hope that that will increase our retention levels. We've completed our search for a new career and technical education dean, and the individual that we have selected is Cassie Silvas, and Cassie's here tonight, so congratulations, Cassie, on that new appointment. And Cassie was responsible for the development of our Aerospace Center of Excellence and our significant increases in our dual credit programs. And so she has assumed responsibilities for this new role. Now, with this change in her responsibilities, and with Laura Hill leaving, we have done some restructuring within the college, and so I'd like to just cover that a little bit. First of all, we will not replace Laura Hill with an executive director of HR. We will have a director of HR, but not an executive director. And that director will report to Chris Martin, the Vice President for Business and Finance, and we will actually garner some salary savings out of that as well. With Cassie moving over to the Career and Technical Dean position, we will be also moving ABE and GED along with the Village Project to Larry Briggs, who's responsible for General Studies, and those programs are more in line with General Studies than where they have resided in the past. We will not refill Cassie's position, but what we will do is hire an associate dean. So that dean position will be reclassified to an associate dean position that will be given to Larry Briggs to help him manage those new responsibilities, as well as manage our outreach programs or outreach centers. Cassie will be taking with her the Aerospace Center of Excellence, which previously did not belong to CTE. That will now become a part of CTE, and she will retain dual credit responsibilities because she's done such a fabulous job with that. And so with these structural changes, there are some salary savings and we believe efficiencies as well. This year, for the first time in a couple years, the residence halls have the resident hall has a waiting list. It's fully subscribed to, and that's some good news. And so, Graydon, thanks very much on that. Also, previously, the board had allowed us to go out with an RFP to look at providing better health services for our students. The organization that received the contract from us is Heritage Health. They are now providing a student health clinic on campus that will not provide services for employees, but the services are expanded from what they used to be, and we believe that this is a great partnership with Heritage Health. With our healthcare grant that we are implementing. Our dental program, our dental hygiene program, will be utilizing Heritage Health Clinic so that we don't have to invest in and establish a dental clinic for those programs. So there's some great synergy in working with Heritage Health. In Idaho, approximately 50% of high school graduates, and there are roughly 21,000 graduates in Idaho, do not attend college. And so in an effort to encourage those individuals who do not attend college to attend college, the presidents of the higher education institutions as well as the State Board of Education have put together a program that every single graduating senior in Idaho that has a 3.0 or higher GPA will be given a letter that says you are automatically admitted to any one of the 8 higher education institutions in Idaho. If the GPA is less than a 3.0, they will use a combination of their SAT or ACT scores and the GPA, and then will receive a letter that indicates they may be not maybe, that they will be admitted to those 8 institutions. And if the combination of those 2 scores do not fall above a certain threshold, those graduates will receive a letter that says that they are admitted unconditionally to the 2 universities that have a community college role, as well as ITech and the 3 community colleges. So we are covered in all 3 of those contingencies, and we hope that that will encourage a go-on rate by students understanding that they are automatically admitted to an institution of their choice, providing they complete high school and graduate. So we're looking forward to the outcome of that. On September 9th, there's an athletic fundraiser, which is a cruise on the lake, and we would like to invite all of you to attend that. And if there are any questions or desire to attend, just let myself or Al Williams know about that. On September 3rd is the kickoff by the foundation for our fundraising for the CTE facility. And that'll be here on campus, and we will unveil our structure in terms of how we will go about the campaign, what that means to the college, and I think that'll be a great opportunity to showcase what's happening with that current technical facility, what that means to the community, and the investment that this college has made. Now, yesterday I went out to the construction at the CTE site, and they've pretty well got the everything down to grade, and it looks like they're about ready to start digging and putting in footings and foundations, and so things are moving along quite well out there. And then the last thing I want to mention, and Mark is not here right now, he had to step out for a quick meeting, is that when we kicked off this year, this school year, Mark and his office organized a campaign that says, "I'm in." And what we were trying to convey to employees is that all in means subscribing to our 5 college values, and those college values include community engagement, diversity, educational excellence, student success, and stewardship. And so the banner that you see hanging over the entrance to this facility has signatures of many, many, many of our employees that have recommitted themselves to the 5 values of the college. And so I want to recognize the hundreds of employees that have done that, and the appreciation for them recommitting themselves to this college, those values, and our students. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. Board, do you have questions for President Dunlap? Trustee Nielsen.
Joe, you mentioned this 6% reduction of full-time equivalent at this point to date. Do you know where we were last year at this point, at the first day of class?
Not precisely, but I would guess we were closer to 9% down. And so this is very good news for us. And in about 10 days, we will have a final number. And we don't expect it to get any worse, quite frankly, because we've had some huge ORS, student orientation classes, that have taken effect. Now, Graydon, you may have a little different perspective on that.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and President Dunlap, it's real similar to what you conveyed, but particularly our last ORS was very highly subscribed. And since that time, we had a number of students who missed ORS, who are full-time degree-seeking students who have come into the advising office and gone through an individual process and registered for classes this week. We anticipate that those numbers will only improve over the next couple weeks because of those students coming in, more dual credit classes getting started. So we think we'll have an improvement beyond that.
Thank you, Graydon.
Trustee Meyer.
To follow up on that theme, your description of the dropping of students based on when they paid, part of that, I want to be sure we as a college are dealing with the fact that students can't pay because there's a financial hardship.
Right.
So as they find reality as they enter school here and the costs, which are higher than any of us would like, both for programs and materials, then what resources do we have to help that student then say, don't give up, if you can't pay now, these are some ways we can help you do that? Are there things in place to make that happen?
Well, there are. I mean, we have our financial aid office that provides counseling for students with regard to loans and Pell Grants. We also have our foundation that last year gave out over 900 scholarships to the tune of almost $1 million for students. And then through Student Services, we also provide, excuse me, budget counseling classes for students who may need some assistance in managing their budgets. So there are resources available.
And so from my perspective as a board member and as a community college, and now with a chance with television and the media to help tell people, you can afford to come to NIC. We will find a way to help you fund it. Do not give up. And I think often as folks come to the reality, that becomes a barrier, and it's one that we can deal with, and we just need folks to come talk to us. Is that fair?
Yeah, and that's exactly right, Trustee Meyer. And the bottom line is that the community colleges are the best bargain in town. Of the 54 colleges and universities in Oregon, Idaho, and Washington, we are the second from being the least expensive. There's only one other college out of those 54 that has tuition that is less than ours.
Thank you.
Trustee Howard.
President Dunlap, I first of all, let me say that I applaud the concept of the revised policy of trying to keep students enrolled by understanding the financial difficulties that they face. I mean, we've all heard the statistics about how expensive education is getting and how important education is to people, so I applaud that concept. I'm a little concerned, though, and maybe it's because as we look at these methods of trying to keep people enrolled, there's always experimentation going on, and that's a good thing. But the idea of if they don't pay up by the end of the semester, that they don't sign up for the next semester, I guess concerns me a little bit. It seems like if they get to that point, we ought to have, they really want to be educated, we really ought to find another solution than saying you can't go on and keep learning. Just the concept of it sort of strikes me as not in line with what we want to see students do. We want to see them go on. And even if it's a matter of having them sign loan documents to the college, and we may need to go through some legal analysis of this to see how we can secure the college's investment in these people, if that's what it amounts to. We can't get resources from other locations like the foundation or loans and that sort of thing. But when we get to the end and they, for some reason or other, still want to learn but they can't pay for it, to say, okay, we won't turn your grades loose to the next institution that you want to go to, and you can't continue here. That seems like a harsh resolution at that point. Now, and maybe you can address that a little bit.
Well, I think there's two sides to that coin. One of those is that that is a harsh reality. And there are mechanisms in place, whether it's through a loan process, and our financial aid folks can help those students through that process, or through scholarships, or through the Pell Grant process that can assist them in doing that. But and so there needs to be some sort of resolution to that accommodates both the student and then meets our needs as well. Because if there isn't, and out of our goodwill, we said, well, just go forth, then pretty soon that would take on epidemic proportions. And so we've got to have some sort of recourse. Now, should we examine maybe some other instruments on how we do that with regard to an indebtedness to the college? We can certainly do that. And Chris and PC can have that discussion. So we're open to looking at that.
I do appreciate the experimentation of trying to make it work for the students. So.
One thing I did fail to mention, tomorrow PC will be having a retreat, and the purpose of that retreat is to put together an institutional master plan that not only addresses the educational master plan, institutional prioritization, information technology, facilities master plan, but puts that all together. And Shannon will be assimilating all that information. And what we would like to do later this fall is bring that plan to you for your review and comment. So sometime later this fall, we'd like to bring that to conclusion.
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. Trustee Meyer.
Sounds good, and that's certainly something we're eager to get to when you can. Back to one of the other things you reported about, which was the state board and all the universities getting a program and a policy that says we'll send out a letter that will tell everybody with a 3-point that you can both attend any school that you can work it out. There again, do we have anything in that letter, and is it a boilerplate letter, or do we customize it a bit, that talks again about there's financial aid ways we can work with you when you are interested in coming to a college? And then the other aspect of it would be, how soon does that, almost folks need to know that at their junior year in order to be sure they've completed all the stuff they're supposed to do to get ready to come to NIC. And so I don't want to be negative in any way about what we're doing, just be sure, and I don't know quite how we do this, as we learn about how this letter works, begin to say to folk at the beginning of your senior year, I don't know, we'll have to let the professionals work on that.
The letter is a boilerplate letter, to answer your question, from the State Board of Education. It's not from each individual institution. There is not anything in the letter that talks about financial aid. And in terms of the timing, Lita, do you recall when those are sent out?
The timing is basically restricted by when the state receives the information back regarding the testing that has been done. And so it really does limit the ability to send it out any earlier. They will receive that information probably in early fall and use the data to figure out who gets what letter. And then the letter is intended to come out in November, I believe. So prior to the final semester for the senior, and give them an opportunity to think about if there is something they should take or finish up at their high school to be able to be eligible for that admittance, that they would have that opportunity. We all agree, everybody who's been involved in this discussion, that it is late, and certainly I think this is an initiative that is being tried, and I'm sure that we will assess it and see how it might work in the future. The other aspect of this, we can't tailor the letter, but the other aspect of this I think that will be positive is that North Idaho College will have access to name and contact information of the students who do receive the letters that say basically they can come to our college, which is essentially all of those students. So we would have the opportunity then to use that contact information to send out individualized or more individualized letters from North Idaho College.
Thank you, Leda.
And it's development, that's a good point. And it doesn't always need to be paper letter anymore. I suspect there are other ways we can contact folk, and we need to be, I'm sure you're further ahead than I am on the social media aspect of it. And, that should go out at the middle school level saying, get ready. And we've heard this as trustees at our workshops. We need to reach out to young folks, well, not just young folks, anybody in the community that says, we have things that you can come do and enjoy here. So marketing, go for it.
And Dr. Dunlap, I would just like to add before you sit down that what a wonderful choice you made with Cassie. Congratulations. You've worked very, very hard on behalf of North Idaho College, and we just know that you're going to bring even more of your talent forward as our new dean. So I'm excited about your selection. Very nice. I'm sorry, Trustee Banducci, you had a comment?
Real quick, Joe had mentioned we'd know in about 10 days, and then I know that we've relieved some of the financial burden, but we're still going to have a drop ad day, I'm guessing, and you'll have the rest of the new folks. When is that actually going to occur?
So it's the 4th, it's next Friday on the drop ad. We also still have that drop for non-enrollment. So if they just haven't shown up, we're going to drop them from classes, so they're not penalized, nor is the college.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. All right, board, that takes us to our K-Tech board report, and we fortunately have 2 trustees and sometimes a third that serves on that board of trustees. So I would open it up to Judy Meyer and Ron Nielsen, if you have been at the meetings, or Trustee Banducci. Who was at the last one?
Ron and I made it to the last one, so
Fantastic.
Why don't I start, because I'm still learning more about this. Ron has lived it longer than I, but one of the things was the K-Tech board meetings occurred in early August. Generally, we'll try and have those scheduled for the day that we have board meetings, so we can bring you the latest information. But in this case, at the August 12th meeting, we were learning more about how many folks finished at K-Tech and how many are coming to NIC, because that's been a concern of ours all the way along. And so my numbers, Ron, right here, there were 45% of those who finished are looking to come to NIC for first round of not really dual enrollment, but further enrollment. But it could also be that we wanted to be sure there's dual enrollment available. The other thing that really caught my fancy was the information, and I'm not sure it was sent to the board, I think it should be eventually, and that was the PTE. We're still working on the name, right, Ron? But the strategic initiatives, that is a document that was shared with us at K-Tech, which came from the state office, which is then Dwight Johnson, who's director of that program. And I'm hoping that we can get Dwight up here to both visit with our board and to visit with organizations and community, because I think he's doing some good leadership on topics like communicate the value of PTE opportunities, develop adequate resources to grow PTE, increase PTE advanced opportunities, dual credit, technical competency credit, connect education to employment, pretty fundamental, but he has a whole list of things that they're working on there. Expand access to PTE programs, provide PTE credit for high school graduation, improve PTE teacher pipeline. So I won't take any more time with this now, but I was very excited by what he's written up as strategies and initiatives he's working on. And I think our board will be pleased with both what he's working on, and hopefully the results will be that we'll be even busier with PTE.
Great, thank you. Trustee Nielsen, anything to add?
No, I think it was pretty quiet out during the summer session, but there's still continued work taking place between K-Tech and NIC, with lots of compliments about the way that Doug Anderson and the CTE department is working with them, aligning curriculum and aligning and preparing kids for the next step so that they can go on. So I think that we're better than we've ever been between the two educational institutions. So, so no, things are going well. They're full, so they tapped out right where they wanted to be. So I think that that they did a really good job this year, doing similar to what you did with WARS, is getting out and educating the people. And they think that the next year they're going to have to look to go to a third semester, if you want to call it a third time slot, because it's so full. And I think this is a perfect opportunity as we step forward and have by next year at this time, there might be some opportunity for shared resources between K-Tech and NIC's CTE facility to actually move some students back and forth between there. So I think it's going to be a win-win for everybody. So.
Right. Trustee Banducci.
Ron, did I see somewhere that was like 345 or something on their enrollment? Does that sound about right?
Last number I heard was 328, and they were trying to put some more students, so it could be at 345, but 328
Somewhere in
was the
that
last
range then, okay. I'd seen that somewhere, I don't recall where, but it's stuck in my mind.
We'll follow up on that. Also, as Ron mentioned, growth continues for programs at K-Tech, and so as a board for K-Tech, we authorized the hiring of another health occupation instructor, which again will feed into the programs that are going on here, which I think will just, as we say, be synergistic for providing good access for, this will be through high school students. In addition to that, then we have all the programs available for those who want to return to campus as well.
Very nice. Thank you both for your report.
Let me follow up. This report, then, if it hasn't been shared with the board, is Shannon, there? We'll talk about it, because it is very thought-provoking. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay, that takes us to old business, our second reading, Eliminate Workers' Compensation Policy 3.0218. Chris Martin, tab 1.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening. This is the second reading of the workers' compensation policy. At the last regular meeting of the board in June, it was discussed that this is actually a law, and we don't have an option not to comply, and it might be best served not putting this in policy since it's assumed we are going to do this as it's law. And the recommendation was that we move the procedural part of this to the administrative guidelines so that employees have access to how this works and what the information is, but not have it in an actual policy.
Okay, thank you. Chris, I think that you found a happy medium between board members, and that's a miracle in itself, so thank you. Board, any comments on this second reading of this proposed policy? If so, I'd like a motion.
I will make a motion that we eliminate our workers' compensation policy 3.0218 because that we will comply with all state policies for workmen's compensation.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Meyer seconds it.
All right. Motion is second. All in favor, board?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And let's see, are you up again?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
are. All right. This is our first reading under tab 2 for our Robin Hood property easement. Please walk us through that.
So the college was approached by the city and one of the military neighborhood homeowners regarding the easement of the alley. And in researching this property, there are several things that have occurred that would be a detriment to the homeowners. One of those is that the original easement was 7 feet for the alley, and the other being that it was closed off from river with the development of the Centennial Trail. And so in looking at all of our options and working to be good neighbors with the Military Drive homeowners, the recommendation is that the college would provide a license for access to the Military Drive residents. Currently, they are accessing their alley behind the Military Drive homes on a new alley that's just kind of developed over time as the other was closed on the north side of North Military Drive. It connects all on NIC property that was part of the mill site, and that connects back to the alley that was existing prior, and so they have access even though there's no access on river. So this will protect the college in two ways, allowing homeowners to access that north portion that's on the mill site, as well as allowing them to continue the full access of the alley as it exists today, which is wider than 7 feet, and provide access for the city to continue using the turnaround for garbage and for access for the homeowners to get in and out of that alley until the alleyway is reopened to river when potentially the Centennial Trail is relocated on the BLM land.
Now, Chris, some of the alleyways are not all maintained by the city in the wintertime. Is this something that we would do or not?
At this time, that alley has always been maintained. I don't know if we're maintaining it or the city, but citizens have access to that alley behind
Where their garbage
Military
cans
Drive.
are, I drove it tonight, all their garbage cans are out back there, so they have to get to it year-round apparently.
And we maintain most of Military Drive just by virtue of we're one of the largest landowners on Military Drive. All the facilities department is located on Military Drive. Security, landscape, custodial, human resources is now located on Military Drive. So we're a good portion of the homeowners or landowners in that section. So we're maintaining most of that street now.
I see. Board, any questions? Trustee Nielsen.
I guess, Chris, is there any group or individuals that have come out against this proposal?
Not as of yet, no. They've just asked for a remedy to the problem, and so that they're guaranteed access, if you will, to continue the use of the alley as it exists now.
I have a couple of trustees. Todd went first. Trustee Banducci.
Hey, Chris, I talked to one of the former board members that was on the board when they acquired that property, and was curious about it. And one of the comments that he made, and it may not be a big deal, but he said that when they acquired that property, that there was a title search done on that, and that there wasn't any issues with the property at that time. Was there an easement in place when we bought that, and did we? It doesn't look like we violated the easement if it was in place. It looks like the Centennial Trail did. So did we give up our space for the Centennial Trail? Do we have any liability, I guess, is kind of where I'm headed here.
So two issues, if I can address those, is we did a title search as well through this process, and there was the original 7-foot easement exists. The at issue is
the length all the way down to
the length
Military?
all the way on the Military Drive property from River to the top property owner on Military. So that easement does exist today.
It was there, I remember, in the day.
It was there, and then second piece of that is it is typical that when these things have been done in the past, when we purchased the property, there was the opportunity then to add the easement. The city could have added the easement back in then for the additional 7 feet, and that did not occur in this transaction.
Dr. Dunlap, you had some additional information?
Trustee Nielsen asked about if there was any dissension in terms of opinion towards the request for an easement. To the contrary, actually, the city came to us vis-a-vis the mayor and the city manager and asked us if we could assist them in providing an easement or a license for these homeowners so that they wouldn't have to move their garbage cans out to the front drive and then allow them access back there.
Chris, can you define exactly what a license is?
So a license would be permission from the college to continue to access this space. And so it's a revocable license. It's not a permanent permission. That would allow us flexibility in the future. The college owns several of these homes now.
Does it absolve us of liability if they're using that property of the college?
They're using it now, and we have liability currently. And so this will actually formalize that we've allowed them to access this property through our property at that north portion of the alleyway. And right now, this exists, and if you drove it tonight, it's fenced off
before the meeting.
for the Centennial Trail. And when the Centennial Trail was developed, my understanding is this was, the trail along the lake was not developed at that time. It was under construction, so this allowed people who were on the trail a spur to access downtown and the rest of the NIC campus, and with the idea that it would eventually connect Independence Point through the Four Corners and BLM project.
Thank you. I have several trustees. I'll just go down the aisle here. Trustee Howard.
I've looked at the information that you gave us, but I must confess, I still can't get a picture of what we're talking about. And so I think I want an opportunity to go out on the property and take a look at it so I can make a better informed judgment about it. But my first reaction is a license doesn't seem like a bad idea because it's revocable, whereas an easement is not. But when you give a license, it creates expectations. And sometimes those expectations are difficult to dislodge in the future when you go to make changes. And it's, at least from the discussion, it's my understanding the city created this problem with the Centennial Trail location. Do I have that right?
The Centennial Trail did cut off the access that existed originally, yes.
But then the easement wasn't put in the contract on the subsequent purchase either.
Yeah, excuse me.
Trustees, give you an opportunity to call upon you. Thank you.
So I guess my feeling is if we do a license, the license, I think, has to be pretty descriptive of our right to withdraw it at any time and the circumstances under which we will withdraw it. Like when the Centennial Trail is relocated, I just don't want to be in a position where 5 years from now, the next Board of Trustees is looking at this license and having a lot of public outcry about not renewing it or not continuing it, when in fact the circumstances that created it have disappeared. So again, I want to take a look at it a little more closely, but that's my initial concern.
Trustee Meyer.
I'm just thinking about my fellow trustees' thoughts, because certainly license is the way to go rather than easement. I think we've described that, because it is revocable. But it can't be whimsically done, and so I think that's our responsibility as a community college to work with the neighborhood. And as, at least the maps that were provided to us by the neighborhood folks, I don't think you've provided any maps to us, have you? These maps are all...
The second set we provided just to show clear delineation of where the NIC property is, and we tried to blow those up so that you could see the north portion of the alleyway off of North Military Drive. Because of the access issues on River due to the Centennial Trail, we wanted to highlight that piece, if you will, that kind of curves around and goes back to North Military Drive through the mill site.
Okay, so these two are from NIC, thank you. Because part of the history of this was, as we, college, worked on Riverview Drive and our access there with the higher ed campus LCDC road development, we knew that there would be some adjustments needed to be made with the Centennial Trail, even crossing our roadway that we have there to read the directional sign and eventually whatever development happens with Robin Hood Campground. So I wanted to be sure we're on this map that you provided. Where is the turnaround place that folks are counting on being able to use for the both the garbage truck and anybody else that needs turnaround room? I didn't see it marked on the maps anywhere.
So right where the letter L is on lot 14.
Which drawing are you working on?
On the second, the first map was provided by the homeowner. The second map, second page there was provided by NIC, and it lists lot 14, and you'll see NIC, NIC, and then BLM marked boldly.
Yes.
It's under that first NIC piece. There's an L in the word lot 14.
Yes.
That is the actual turnaround that's currently provided.
Oh, and as you look at it, you can see the clearing that happens.
And so the dark line to the right there is the Centennial Trail, which curves around the turnout.
So in fact, there's no liability or concern as people are using the Centennial Trail. So I believe it's fenced there?
It is fenced there.
That heavy equipment moving in the circle would not affect those using the trail. That's one of the things I wanted to clarify.
It is
Okay, thank you. So I think one of your items today was to look for us to do something with this, right?
Pardon me?
Is our tab looking for us to do
This is
something?
at first reading.
And we have no particular panic that we can't go to a second reading.
Correct.
And with a second reading and a walkthrough by those who need to, this would become an action item at the next board meeting?
That's correct.
Okay, so far we've heard that the community has no troubles or heartburn with it, that the city has come to us to say, help us figure this out, and here's a chance we can do that. And a license, I think, is the way to do it. So I think for today at least, I have the information I need to get ready to make a decision at the next meeting.
Trustee Nielsen.
Well, I want to echo what Judy and both Ken said, is that any time that we see a first reading and the consideration is to bypass the second reading and do a motion, when we have something that has these kind of questions, I think that we should not consider doing that unless there's some sense of urgency, and then we'll spend more time on it. A license, we're setting expectations, but the one thing that we didn't define in this is how do we release the college from any liability associated with an accident that takes place when we grant easement to that property. So I would love to see somebody like Mark or go through this as we get closer to this to make sure that we are released from any liability associated with that. So,
Christie, if I may.
Trustee Banducci.
I would like to reference the third map to the other trustees, and this is something you three may have noted, and then I've got one more comment. Look at where Chris made a point to mark where the 8-foot easement would be. I drove this tonight before the meeting, and it's interesting that it actually goes through basically the back end of some of the residences there, or storage units. I mean, that when you look at the road that's been created, it is totally on our property. And in that same vein, Ken talked about expectations. So we give a license, we are giving up basically our property. It's not even where the easement is, it's on our property. So we just have to be aware of that. If we ever sell that or convey it or do anything with it, or where the property line is, that if we went to the property line or where the easement is, we would completely nullify that makeshift alley right now. So I just point that out. Even if it ends up extending all the way down to River, it still could be a problem in the future. And then the second thing was, Chris, you were kind of unsure to a degree of the maintenance of Military Drive and the back alley and all that. Might be helpful to us if you could clarify exactly what we are doing, again, depending on what expectations that we're setting. If we're plowing everything and maintaining everything on both, that whole deal, that may be fine, but again, we may be setting an expectation that that's just expected, you know, forever. So I'd be kind of curious to know what we're actually doing as far as our maintaining and snow plowing or whatever it might be, grounds maintenance of whatever sort.
And we do maintain most of the city streets within the corridor currently, and so I'll clarify on that one.
Appreciate it.
Well, Board, again, this is just a first reading, and you've received a lot of feedback, the administration has. I think it is important that we do everything we can to be good neighbors with our surrounding neighborhood, and if we're able to come to a good resolution for the neighborhood, the city, and the college, we certainly don't want to put people in the position of having to truck their garbage cans out farther than they need to. So I think that we can make this happen, and we'll leave it in the administration's capable hands to come back to us at the next board meeting. Thank you. With that, we will move on to the first reading of the potential disposal of the Armory facility.
Madam Chair,
Chris,
members of the board.
Thank
you. The Armory facility was acquired by the college in 1988. Officially, it's 2.3 acres located at 717 East Walnut here in Coeur d'Alene. The college uses this property currently as a training facility for women's softball, an indoor training facility, and then an off-site warehousing location currently. The space is classified as underutilized for the college, and the city contacted us with interest in the possibility of transferring the Armory to them. This is one of those unique properties that the college is a trustee of. We have a jurisdictional, the jurisdiction of this was transferred to us by the State Board of Land Commissioners, and so the title and deed on this property is a jurisdictional transfer. So we're requesting the consideration of transferring this with the blessing of the State Board of Land Commissioners to the city of Coeur d'Alene.
Thank you, Chris. Trustees, questions? Trustee Meyer.
In learning about this, it sounds like there's no reason not to, because the way we're using it now is solvable other ways, that if we can lighten our responsibility to have management of anything property-wise, I would champion that. This is a first reading, so we either can take action on it now or wait for a second reading. Is there anything more we would be learning by waiting for a second reading?
Trustee Nielsen.
Just for clarification, use the term acquired. Was there any money that traded between the college and the acquisition of this property?
Not that we have a record of. We actually leased it back to the National Guard for a number of years until their new location was ready.
So it's 2.3 acres with 8,500 square feet of structure.
Correct.
Trustee Meyer.
The process to share it back with the city is one where we need to go back to the State Land Board and have them redirect it. And my understanding is the State Land Board meets maybe once a month. I'm not sure how frequently they. My point is then, in order to move this along and get it to the State Land Board, to get in the process, which if it's a government agency, I won't say anything more about how long it takes, but it would seem reasonable to move that process along, if that makes sense to everybody else.
Well, this is, okay, Trustee Banducci.
All I was going to ask, just for clarification, so anybody that's watching this, because someone may go, hey, you've got 2.3 acres in the Midtown area on Walnut, that's prime real estate, why don't you sell it and make money? My understanding is that we are not able to sell it, and that's why we're interested in maybe working with the city, because it's governmental agency to governmental agency, and that's something that we can do very easily and readily with the approval of the
That's correct.
State Land Board. So I just wanted to clarify that in case anybody's wondering. We are being good stewards with the property, it's just we are limited on what we can do with it.
That's correct. Mr. Lyons, did you have a comment?
Yes, this is a grant of jurisdiction from the state. The State Department of Lands has some responsibility, and as you may know, that the Department of Lands and the Land Board have their own statutes that relate to them and their own procedures. I just want to let the board know that we have made inquiry just potentially to see what sort of process the Department of Lands would go through, and they are looking at that, and we expect to get information, and we expect to have some more of that information for the next board meeting as to what the process is and get an estimate as to how long it might take, because you're right, sometimes these things do take a while.
Okay, thank you. Trustee, we'll start here. Trustee, you need to move over to this side, Ron, you're always last. I'll just, actually, he had his hand up quick first. Go ahead, Trustee Howard.
Well, Mark may have answered my question in that we need to do more research on this, but it seems like another one of those unique situations that we've gotten ourselves into where we don't own the property. We are a trustee? Does the document describe us in some capacity?
The document states that we have been given a grant of jurisdiction over the property with the ability to a reversion if the property is used in a way that is not inimical to the public good or something along those lines.
Does the document address how we get rid of our lucky piece of property?
It does not. Hence my inquiry.
Okay.
It says immediately, but I don't know if anything's immediate with the government.
So if we were to go over there and put a brewery on the property, they'd take it back?
Theoretically, yes.
I would think so. Trustee Nielsen.
Back to my last statement is that this is the first reading. I understand that we have an interest as somebody that would like to possibly use this. I would not like to bypass the first reading and go for a motion, but if we have somebody, if it's an underutilized asset that we're in control of, being good neighbors and good stewards, we're prepared to let somebody come in and use this until we get to the second reading. So that would be my proposal.
Well, what I do know is that Mayor Widmeyer has made this request specifically to the trustees, and as you know, we have a long partnership with the city. We certainly go back and forth with a lot of the things that we try to share resources on. And the city has identified a possible use for the building, and it's underutilized by us. And so it does make good sense to share that partnership. But as you said, there's some more research to do before we can come to a real formal conclusion. So what I would suggest, Board, if we don't, I don't think we need a motion on this, but I would suggest that we direct our administration to continue forward, exploring what we can do, and if we could probably give them the authority to let the city use this temporarily if they need to until we make a decision.
So if we had a 90-day free use for them to get them out of the situation they're in right now, and by then we'll have an answer and it'll just cross over and bleed right through. So,
Dr. Dunlap.
In relation to Trustee Nielsen's comments, the city has not identified or expressed any immediate need for the property. They have a more longer-term interest in that, and so there's no sense of urgency in terms of us granting them access to it pending a final decision. I mean, I appreciate that willingness to do that, and if the city indicates that they do have another need or an immediate need, we could certainly address that, but at this time there has been no immediate need expressed.
Okay, perfect. Well, that was the first reading. Chris, thank you. Any further questions, Board? Oh, trustee Meyer.
Just following up on this, then, what happens next? The administration continues to visit with the city and bring back to us then at the next board meeting, logically, the second reading and/or action item?
Yeah, all the questions that we had hopefully will be resolved, and you can make your decision at that point. Trustee Howard.
Just by way of procedure, I suspect, it seems like what this is not really a first reading of anything. It's really an information item, and there will be some proposed resolution that at some point in time comes to us after Mark's been able to research it. So I don't even know that we need to treat it as a first reading.
Well, I would like to treat it as a first reading so that we can take action next month if we have all of our questions answered. I'd hate to start over with another first reading because I don't think the information's going to change that much.
Then the technique is, as we've described, is an information item, which we would like to have at least 1 month before we do something. So whatever you call it, if it's on next month's agenda, we've had the information, we've defined what we need next, and which is mostly our attorney to keep us out of jail, then we can take an action on it?
We could, and that's why I would like to leave it as a first reading. I'll go with the purview of the board.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the report. All right, moving right along. Well, Chris, you're right back. Tab 4, college-owned property, Chris Martin.
Wait a minute, we just...
Did I skip somebody?
Yeah. Disposition of Riverbend property.
Oh, that's kind of a major topic. We just added that. Okay, thank you. Dr. Dunlap.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have received another inquiry regarding the 10 parcels or 11.4 acres of land owned in Riverbend by North Idaho College. And the inquirer asked if NIC would reconsider selling those 10 lots for the previously agreed upon price of $2.07 per square foot, with them paying the realtor fees on top of that. And so the way that this would pencil out is that if you include the realtor fees on top of the $2.07 per square foot, it comes out to $2.19 per square foot that would be the selling price. The gross to NIC would be, before closing costs, the gross to NIC would be $1,028,740. The closing costs are estimated at $3,500, and the net to NIC would be $1,025,240. And so my recommendation is that the Board of Trustees direct NIC administration to follow through with the inquirer, and assuming a written offer is received that reflects a sale price of not less than $2.19 per square foot. Pardon me? Then NIC agrees to execute the sale of the 10 parcels of NIC land located in Riverbend Industrial Park previously discussed and offered for sale, and that NIC agrees to cover closing and realtor fees out of the gross proceeds.
May I suggest it's 2.194?
Okay. Trustees, let me call upon you. Thank you. Trustee Nielsen.
I got to go first this time.
Yes, you had your hand up.
Well, you said another inquiry. Does it make a difference? Is this still under the Atlas proposal?
It is still under the Atlas proposal, that's correct.
Why do we call this another inquiry? I mean, is this just another offer? I mean, I'm trying to get some clarification. It reads funny that we've had 4 separate meetings with this group and have had exchange and information. We've turned them down, and after 4 of these meetings, and now we're calling it another inquiry. Is there a reason why we're calling it another inquiry?
Not in particular. I mean, you can call it the Atlas project if you like.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so we went from, we've had these 4 meetings, and based on the original offer that they said this is the best they can do, we're up well over $125,000. Is that a fair statement?
It is, but they have had what I will refer to as an angel investor that is willing to cover those additional costs for them.
But the college will windfall the additional $125,000 because of an angel investor.
Yep.
And they're there, so.
Exactly.
So this was a painful process, but the college is now plus $125,000 better position than they were before.
Yep.
Just clarification, thank you.
Yep.
Trustee Howard.
So with that discussion, at least I'd like to get a motion on the table, and I would move that NIC offer the sale of the 10 lots at Riverbend previously considered by the board for a sales price of not less than $1.94 per square foot, with NIC agreeing to pay the closing costs and realtor's fees thereon to the Atlas project.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Meyer seconds it.
All right, discussion?
That's why I
Trustee
seconded
Meyer.
it.
Oh, I see. Trustee Meyer.
Let me be sure I understood in the description that we just received tonight, and that's why we put it on the agenda, because we've just received the information.
That's correct.
But it's also a happy moment because I think we're all eager to make this work, and I know Atlas has said they would like to as well. So that the information that says the gross to NIC would be the square feet times the price, 207, and the realtor fees. And so the realtor fees are some that we're not involved in having to pay now, right? Am I reading this right?
Yep.
Okay, because that had been something that stuck in our craw before.
Right.
And thanks to other sources and resources, that has gone away as an issue for us.
Yep.
So as a board, we have now come much closer to what we all had heartburn about, and that was the difference between the appraisal price and the first offering price. And at the time one of our meetings, we all said if we got to the $2.15 a square foot, that would be a good compromise. This comes, I think, even better. And so I am delighted, happy, and eager to make this happen. Ken, your motion says we're going to make it happen because we agreed to make it happen, allowing that we have to cover the closing costs. But otherwise, the price per square foot was the 2.194, and that the administration can go ahead and do it. Is that a summary of what your motion said?
Yes.
How do I vote no, how do I vote yes 3 times?
Trustee Nielsen.
Well, I voted no all 3 times. So just for theirs, I'm going to support this proposal because I think this is closer to what we had worked from the beginning. It's under what would be considered market value if you were to compare this. It's surplus. We don't have a need for it. There's the expansion demand for out there on the Riverbend is not there. This money can be redirected to help us with the CTE project, so it makes sense. And I'm going to support this because it's the right thing now. Back when we started this discussion, I think that this time that we held up was in our best interest.
Well, I have to tell you, being 4-1 and me being the one, this is music to my ears. So I
do. You want to vote.
I will tell you that you've all been very diligent in trying to make this come together appropriately, and I can certainly appreciate that. And for me, I'm very excited to welcome this company to the area and work hard to welcome their students, their employees as our students, and certainly the incredible impact for our entire county, and particularly the city of Post Falls, which we certainly support. So, Trustee Banducci.
Well, you were selling yourself short. It was 4-1, then it was 3-2.
That's right, I did get Judy on my side. I forgot about that. Okay. All right, well, it sounds like...
One other
more
comment,
All
and
right.
that was that as a board, we'd always been concerned about our relationship with the city of Post Falls. In this case, we've had clear support with a letter from the city of Post Falls saying this is a good thing. And that was part of what I think we were trying to measure as a board. How do we bring together all these factors? And I think we've done that well, so I'll call for the question.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for all the hard work from the administration. You've been back and forth several times, and thank you to the board for your hard work. I think we made this happen the right way. Thank you.
Welcome, Atlas.
I don't know, that's the first time that somebody else other than Ken called for the question in a while.
Ah. All right, that moves us on to, excuse me, Information items, tab 4, college-owned property, Chris Martin.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I appreciate your patience with me tonight and your time. The board asked for a review of all college-owned property at our last board meeting, and this is presented as information only, but the college owns 123 acres between the main campus, education corridor, off-campus property at workforce training, and the most recently acquired Rathdrum Prairie site. The college is the trustee for an additional 5.28 acres, which includes the Armory, which was discussed previously, the Harding Family Center on 15th, and 2 additional Head Start locations in the north. Enclosed is a list of all the properties and their most recently assessed county value assessment and where these properties are located.
Great. Board, do you have questions? Trustee Nielsen.
Chris, as I go through these square footage and the valuations that are on there, what jumps off the page to me is we paid $10 million for the 17 acres on the waterfront, and the assessment done by the county says it's worth $4 million. Does that not seem funny to you?
I guess to respond to that is the foundation made that purchase, and I'm correct, and gifted that to the college. Part of that was involved in that. The foundation was involved in part of the PUD.
For the,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're asking me a question. Yes, the original transaction did involve the foundation, however, NIC
College funds were used as part of that.
were used along the way, yes.
So I can't answer why the value from the county is so drastically different than what the value that was, the purchase price was.
I mean, if they could put a $4 million or $100 million, we don't pay taxes on that, but it's funny that you look to an assessor to go in there and look at 17 acres with the amount of waterfront that's there that puts a valuation of $4 million. I don't know what that does for, you know, when we're looking at a balance sheet item, whatever. I just jumped off the page by saying, how can we pay 10, it's worth 4 in 17 acres of waterfront. No matter how you slice it and cut it up, it's got to be worth more than $4 million. So
And I would like to add, thank you, now that I'm tracking a little better, I would like to add that at the time, there were 2 separate appraisals, and in the $14 million range, and the college actually, yes, the foundation paid $10 million. The assessment done at that time by 2 different assessors was much higher. Now, it wasn't a county assessment, it was an appraiser, excuse me. And so I don't know the difference between how a county assessor works and a real estate appraiser works, but there's clearly a difference. You're correct, Mr. Nielsen. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, Chris, it's nice to have this, and it'll be interesting for us as we start to do an evaluation, this opportunity that we had that just transpired with the Riverbend property on a piece of unutilized property and asset that can come at a very timely point in our need for that without having to go to the taxpayers. I think that'll be interesting is if we go forward and we find maybe another piece of real estate, we free that up, and that goes in to help cover some of the operating costs of this campus. So I think this is perfect timing, and we should probably work on some of these surplus pieces of property as we go and keep them in front of us.
Trustee Meyer.
Good point, Ron, and I think that's why we're doing the master planning look again. As part of that, this list is kind of a shopping list of what we have. It would also be helpful to have maps when we do our next round, because I know sort of where these are, but part of our planning will be what's contiguous and what provides future growth as we learn from the administration what they predict will be happening. And always, I think it's valuable to assess and evaluate what do we need to continue to own, what's worth investing in, and what is worth pruning. So it sounds like that comes along maybe in a workshop in the fall for some more time as you begin to gather the information. So this is the first round of that assessment and information. because this now, as you best you know, is all the land or property that NIC has responsibility for.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Trustee Howard.
You know, it's probably on here and I've missed it, and I'm going to be embarrassed when you show it to me, but I don't see the CTE facility land on here.
I saw it on the,
It's there, it's
Page-
37
K-Tech.
acres.
Yes, it is on page 2, under NIC owned properties off campus, line 2.
Off campus.
Like 37 acres.
Okay, I see it.
37.4 acres.
There we go.
Thank you. And that's valued at only $357,000.
359, yes, sir.
Undeveloped.
59,000.
And Chris, notation on that, just for book clarification, is I believe that number is closer to 500, but the actual $200,000 paid by, or by the past president that was put down on that property to hold that for the full 151 acres, that with that deposit, they shifted that deposit from 151, paid down on, and that was the balance.
And again, this does not reflect the book value that we have this listed on as an asset for the college. That'd be the purchase price and then any adjustments we've made since then, not the county valuations.
Trustee Banducci.
Hey, Chris, I have a question. And it kind of refreshed my memory when I was looking at the maps and then did the little drive earlier today. As we look at the way the parcels are sliced, I guess I'll say it that way, divided in what we bought with the campground, and then how it slices across and has the BLM with the building and that, and then we've been talking about what we're doing with the city with that corridor and the whole thing. Is it possible, because we've got our signage out there, which we kind of got given some space there, which is actually on the BLM land, are we going to possibly end up with the remainder of that BLM land that strips across there so we have that whole chunk? Is that part of the discussion agreement?
That's part of the current Four Corners planning. And so there's a lot of conversations with the city in that. I do not anticipate that we will be receiving that as a transfer, but that they'll work with us in developing that BLM land.
As part of our master plan that Judy alluded to, and we're working on that, do we have any preliminary thoughts to what we're doing with that property, or is it premature to even go there at this time?
The Robin Hood Campground specifically?
Yes, sir.
The reason, if I may go back to our previous conversation, the reason specifically for the license is so that we do not inhibit the future development of that property when the college may have plans in the future. So right now, that's listed as expansion. It's there for future development. We want to make sure that we leave that, that very nice entryway into campus open for future use, but there's no plans currently for that property.
Some of the past discussion, Trustee Banducci, was a public-private partnership maybe for workforce housing, student housing. And that's certainly still a possibility in the future for either this board or future boards, but those were some of the discussions that maybe we could utilize it for housing. Trustee Meyer.
The same, that geographical area is part of that Four Corners, the BLM, the whole thing that Trustee Howard has been working with to see what the parameters are on how the BLM land can be used, and therefore how it fits into what we're doing. So I think it's part of that future design, but certainly that part needs close discussion with the city, because there is a lot of interweaving that goes on. So I think that's over the fall evolution, rather than revolution or devolution, or whatever the word is. Okay.
Board, anything further on this topic? All right, thank you, Chris. That takes us to the Career Technical Education Facility update.
Just a brief update, and I'll just elaborate briefly on what Dr. Dunlap shared. Dirt has definitely turned. All the site work is currently in play, and we are working on digging it out for the footings right now. We are on track for a move-in of next June, early July, and that is on track. The contractor has been very eager to get started on this project and has been very understanding of the fact that we have no flexibility on our schedule, and they're working closely with the subcontractors on that now. We're having our regular site meetings on site, and things are moving. And so steel will be delivered shortly, and we'll start to see some real changes occur next to K-Tech.
If I recall, Dr. Dunlap, you do have a project manager associated with that. Is that correct?
We do. We have an owner's representative, and that is Mr. John Young.
Fantastic. Good choice. All right. Chris, thank you very much for all your reports this evening. Tab 5, History of the RIF Policy Revision. Our attorney, Mark Lyon.
Thank you, Chair Wood, members of the board, President Dunlap. RIF comes up from time to time, and the board had asked for a background on this subject because this has been going on for a number of years. So I wanted to give the board a history of some of the RIF policy issues and where they started. Discussions related to reduction in force, or RIF, started way back in 2010 as part of an effort to revise a number of policies, including termination, remediation, and suspension of faculty. RIF was included with these revision efforts because the administration at the time had a concern that while certain programs may need to be downsized, there was no policy vehicle to reduce force related to discrete areas within the institution. The only reduction in force RIF policy was, and still is, 3.02.26. That's staff reduction due to financial exigency. This policy only comes into play if the financial solvency of the institution as a whole is at risk. This policy does not address reduction in force for any situation for which the institution is looking at discontinuing programs, certain programs or services. The revision of the first three policies regarding termination, remediation, and suspension was successfully completed in the spring, fall, over that time period of 2010. By the fall of 2010, and discussions began regarding a revision to the RIF policy. Originally, the revised draft proposal incorporated into a single policy conditions for both RIF based on financial exigency or emergency, and also program reduction, discontinuation, etc. In early 2011, a number of drafts were reviewed and debated with the Senate committee, this between the administration at the time, College Council involved, and a Senate committee tasked to review that issue. In May of 2011, a decision was made to separate the RIF issues into two separate policies, one to provide revision of the existing exigency policy, and the second, a new policy to address program reduction, discontinuation, etc. Drafts were prepared for discussion in the fall of 2011 and went back and forth. In 2012, the Senate committee proposed revisions to the RIF policy dealing with financial exigency, but did not provide a proposal regarding program reduction. The process moved slowly, in part because necessarily the faculty or the Senate committee needed to take different drafts for discussion back to constituent groups and to the Senate. So meetings happened monthly, so this process really did move slowly. And also, as you will recall, this was during the year that the institution was undergoing a change in leadership, so there were further, I guess, disruptions related to that, or at least continuations related to that. In the fall of 2012, the Senate reported in October that the Senate had completed a first and second reading of a proposed RIF policy. The RIF policy was passed by the Senate in late 2012, and that dealt with the subject of financial emergency or exigency. You will recall, some of you on the board will recall, at the December 19, 2012 board meeting, the Senate submitted its proposed RIF policy revision dealing with financial emergency to the board. The board took action at that time, passing a motion to table the Senate's proposed policy. The board's motion returned the Senate policy to committee for further consideration and with review and input from the board. Now, and things kind of get lost a little bit until spring of 2013. There were some discussions in spring of 2013, but no action, and no action by the board. In July, a draft of both a proposed policy and a procedure with comments that was prepared by me as college counsel as discussion drafts. These were provided to the president and the board chair. Drafts were subsequently provided to the individual board members, and copies of the draft policy and procedure were also given to the Senate in the summer of 2013. At its September 2013 meeting, the Senate voted to reject that draft based on NIC policy 2.01.04. Now, there is currently no agreement over a policy with the Senate, and it is my understanding that President Dunlap has presented a proposal for a RIF policy to the Senate. Basically, at this point, that's the history, or a summary of the history. There are also details in there, but that's a summary of the history, and I think others here may have better knowledge of what the current status is. So I want to provide the board with the history. This is where we are now, and so I know the administration has been working with Senate leadership on coming up with a new RIF proposal. So there we are.
Dr. Dunlap, I'd like you to bring us up to speed on where you are currently.
If we go back to last fall, it was agreed that we would not come forward with a new proposal until faculty was back on campus. But over the course of the summer, Aaron Davis and I met and had several conversations about what could or should be included in a policy and procedure. And so Aaron took that to the faculty, and at the last faculty assembly meeting, I was invited to come and review that proposal with them and answer questions about that. And it was agreed at that point that any feedback from faculty would be provided to Aaron, and she articulated this evening that she had received that and would soon have that to the administration. And it is my intent to take that feedback, see how it fits into what was proposed, and then come back to the board with a proposal, and then sometime in the near future, very near future, see if we can come to agreement on a new policy with the associated procedure.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Banducci.
Hey, Mark, I'm holding what you gave us back for the draft with the notes and the comments. Is that the baseline that, Joe, is this the baseline that you started with to open the discussion, the dialogue again with Aaron this time?
It is, and the majority of that has been preserved, but there have been some other things that have been added. And tonight was to look at the history of where we are without delving into the actual content, and I'm not prepared to talk about that content tonight.
I was just wondering if this was the starting point.
Yes, absolutely it is, and that was used as the basis for the discussions that Aaron and I had. Yep.
That was all my question. I don't want you to have to go any deeper. I just was wondering.
Trustee Nielsen.
Mark, to say that we are moving slowly, I think this would be deemed as an understatement from 2010 to 2015, that the ball is still not moving. So our desire is for us to be able to define where the RIF policy comes in. I've read about 10 community college RIF policies. I have 4 or 5 of them here. And if we were unable to come up with one, we could probably copy one of the other colleges that have this in place. So saying that is that almost all colleges define the reason for RIF as decline in enrollment, financial conditions, program eliminations, and whatever. They do a very good job of separating and making sure that 10-year time of service is in consideration for this, and that there is also performance and evaluations associated with this. It's not something that you ever want to do, but as we have faced this college over the last 4 years, I think it's our fiduciary responsibility to be able to get this policy in place so that when the time comes, if we have another deterioration in 2016, that we have a policy that is agreed to by the college administration, by the Senate, and by the Assembly that says that we understand that this is a policy. And so I would like for you to do the best you can from a legal perspective is looking at a RIF policy to explain the difference between a shared or a participatory, or the participation by this, and what is the difference in there, so that we all can understand that, because maybe I misunderstand what the difference is.
I think everyone is in agreement that we need a vehicle by which we can orderly address a potential reduction in force with the appropriate considerations and safeguards in play. So I think everybody is moving in that direction. In terms of how do we put it together, we have, for this board, a policy on policies that we have to comply with. And that is our board policy, and that does create some of the time lags in this process. But it's one that is a board policy, so I don't feel like we can really bypass that.
Back to my question, follow-up to that, which is, I'd like for you to explain the difference between the shared governance and the participatory governance, and what is that, explain the difference between those, because some colleges have a shared governance, and some have a participatory or participation by the faculty in the Senate and the representation there. So what is the difference between, just from a legal, for the term shared and participation?
I think different people would have different interpretations of that. The way I've always looked at this is participatory governance here at this institution, because the employees, through their constituent groups and their assembly, provide input to the administration, and through the board policies, input to the board, but ultimately the decision-making is with the administration at whatever level, operating levels, policy levels, and ultimately with the board on broad policy matters. So this is an institution that the decision-making is with the board and administration, the participation is with the employees through, and the students to some degree through the constituent groups.
Perfect. That was my understanding, but when we hear shared governance, we went to a couple of retreats, and we went to one that talked about the difference, and that it wasn't until it was well defined that the college president that spoke about the difference, he says, we had a misinterpretation of the difference until we defined that it was very important for everybody to understand which one we are, and so thank you.
Trustee Howard.
I guess maybe I wanted to respond to Ron's question a little bit, because I don't care which term you use. Our authority is defined by, first, the statute, which gives fundamental and ultimate responsibility to this board with regard to the entire operation. To the extent we delegate that, then we delegate it to the administration, and we put that in policy. And our policy basically sets up right now, as I recall reading it, that we are the ultimate, we make the ultimate choice. So I don't care what term you use, it really is the policy that we have in place that defines it. And that policy sets this board up as a final decision maker.
Agreed.
And just to follow up to that, I agree 100% with you, Ken, and I think that at this point that we need to put a timeline in place that states that we're going to, by a certain time, have a policy in place that we can agree on and put it into place. Another 5 years I don't think is acceptable.
Was there another? Dr. Dunlap.
I just wanted to follow up on Trustee Nielsen's question, because, again, whether you use shared or participatory governance, it depends on what level of the organization you're talking about in terms of the full meaning of that. And so, and let me just give you some examples. There are some decisions that are made by deans that receive input from all constituents. There are some decisions that are made by faculty in the institution. And let me give you examples of those. Classroom management is a faculty responsibility and part of their decision making. curriculum development is the purview of faculty, and they're the ones who make the decision on development of faculty, or excuse me, the development of curriculum and approval of curriculum for the institution. We also have screening committees, for example, in a dean, for a dean, where faculty participate, and it's that screening committee that makes the decision in terms of who's going to be interviewed for the position. So there are different levels of decision-making by different constituents, but the ultimate authority, as described, rests with the Board of Trustees. But I want to be clear that throughout the institution, we seek participation by all employee groups because we think that that makes for better decision-making rather than being autocratic and dictatorial about how we go about our business.
I think most higher ed falls in line with that, and what I hear from Trustee Nielsen is that he supports that concept as well. It really is just a matter of terminology, and I guess I'm with Trustee Howard. I don't really care what it's called as long as the process is in place. Trustee Nielsen?
And Joe, I agree with you 100%. There's no argument at all that you do a great job of leading this college, getting your different levels of administration, faculty together to come to a common cause. You do a great job of this. But at the end of the day, we're talking about this is policy making, which is at this level.
Right.
And we want participation, but at the end of the day, as our attorney spelled out to, we will eventually make the decision, and so we have to get to that.
Right.
And we have to say that we want you to participate, but at this point, we will make the decision. But it's going to force us to have to make a decision without the input if we're not getting this exchange. So I'm just suggesting we move the policy up. So.
No, and I think we understand that.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Madam Chair, trustees, thank you. We have already set that process in place. President Dunlap brought proposed RIF policy and procedure to faculty assembly. We will get our feedback to him probably by the end of the week, and then it would be up to the president to bring it to Senate. Once it goes to Senate, it's basically on a 2-month timeline. It has to go through a first read and a second read, and then the Senate votes on it and brings the results of that to the board. When this, back in 2013, when the version we got back from the board, the Senate wound up rejecting, and I won't get into the reasons for that right now because I don't think it matters. I think we just want to move forward. But at that point, the board could have acted, and there's actually a policy in place for what to do when there's a difference between what the Senate passes and what the administration wants. That didn't happen, so that actually at that point was not faculty or the Senate, which includes faculty, staff, and students, holding things up at that point. We are ready to go. It's a new year, and we have taken this up, and I think that we have already set the ball rolling, so I just wanted to.
I think that's a good point, Aaron. Thank you for that. Okay, Ken had his hand up, and then can I, go ahead.
Well, I guess I'd just like to maybe suggest a procedure to make sure that we get to a decision-making point. And I understand the process of getting it through the faculty and into the Senate and getting their opportunity to read and review it. But if at the end, the faculty and the staff and cannot agree with what the administration proposes, I would like to see those two options come before us with an explanation of why you think whatever's in yours is important, and we get it from the administration as to why they think their points are important, those points in contention. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of agreement, so that we can sit and we can make a decision ultimately on those points in contention and get a policy passed. And so I would think that at the conclusion of the Senate's review, that we should be able to, at that next meeting, sit down and make a decision after putting on the agenda an open discussion about the different points of view.
And that's exactly what our policy says we should do. So you do not disagree with that at all.
All right. Trustee Nielsen, go ahead.
And just to follow up, Aaron, this board has to take a lot of the responsibility for this thing dragging on like this, and I appreciate your willingness to keep this ball moving, and we talked about this 10-year process. When we first talked about it, it was an emotional roller coaster, and between, oh gosh, what are they trying to do, and when we got done with it, now it's well defined. We all agree on it. We don't talk about it anymore. This RIF policy is something that we've been talking about from before I got on the board, all the time I'm on the board, and now we have a situation where I think that we need to have a policy that is well-defined and in place, and so I'm looking forward to it. And I think at the end of it, we're going to be in the same place we were at the end of that. Was, wow, we worried a lot what the outcome was going to be, and we get darn with it. So.
Good. Trustee Meyer?
So then I wanted to walk through the jello that we're nailing to the wall here for the timeline, because what we've learned is it's another month, this is August, September, before your first and second reading happen. Take us through that.
I'm sorry, the
All of
Senate
you,
Chair can jump in, but Faculty Assembly will probably finish giving our feedback to President Dunlap at the end of the week.
This very week in August, okay?
I believe so. We're doing everything we can to make that happen, and I don't have any doubts at this point that it will. Once President Dunlap receives our feedback, then he can choose how he wants to incorporate that feedback in the draft that he sends to the Senate. Correct me if I'm wrong, President Dunlap.
That's fine.
Once it goes to Senate, and so for example, Senate meets on September 17th. Our policy requires that any policy that goes to Senate goes 10 days ahead of that, so it would have to be September 7th. If President Dunlap were to give that to the Senate by September 7th, then they would take it up for the first reading September 17th, and then that's when basically the 2-month timeline kicks in, because there's a first reading and a second reading.
So as we walk through that, we're now into October and November. What I'm headed for is by the end of the year, this very year, we should have all the pieces put together and the board should have a chance to look at it.
Have my work done by September 7th.
John, you had a comment?
Yes, I would like to address the question of shared governance more broadly, because it seems to me that there's a rationale for shared governance that goes beyond the content of the advice offered by the constituencies to the administration and the board, and that would be that participation by the constituencies increases the commitment to the mission of the college. Participation in college governance helps to unify the college behind its goals and its policies. So there are certainly alternatives to shared governance in all of its forms, and it's clear the board has the ultimate authority in this situation. On the other hand, there's value in enlisting the support and commitment of the constituencies of the college.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, we have our history lesson board. I believe,
Future projections as well.
and we also have the future idea of what's going to happen from here on out. Anything further on this topic? All right, then we'll move on to the report of the board chair. I really don't have a lot to add. And so I would just welcome everyone back to campus. I would say that the all-employee meeting was quite impressive, that everybody shows for that. And I got to see some very impressive presentations. Which board, I want to bring you up on one that of course caught my eye because of my other avenue of employment, my only avenue of employment. Our NIC school resource officer and our own Andy behind the camera, produced a wonderful video. I think Andy did more than our participation at the city, but it was if you've ever seen the national videos that deal with active shooter situations in public buildings and campuses, there's a national video out, Run, Hide, Fight. And what our NIC people did was they created an NIC-based video that was really, really strategic to our campus, and I think gave our employees, staff, and future students it really hit home for everyone. My impression was that this is what could happen on our campus, and this is how we could react, and here's what's appropriate and what here's not appropriate. It's really a sense of decision-making is what we want people to do in a crisis. We don't want them to freeze. We want them to make a decision. So different models of decision-making are offered up for each different level of a tragedy. And I thought they did a fantastic job. I'm not sure how it was received on campus, but me personally, I thought it was very well done. What I would like to ask Dr. Dunlap is to make that video available maybe by link to the Board of Trustees, and I would encourage all of you to watch it. I think you'll be very impressed with what was produced. Anything for Trustee Nielsen?
Is there, I mean, this world's getting, I mean, we just had one today that killed a newscaster and somebody at the same time, and then an execution, and you just kind of say, this world seems to get more messed up all the time. Is there a part of the orientation, a safety education that goes with bringing students on there, if, especially these new freshmen that are coming on board? Is there a part of that, our orientation, to have that?
Great.
Madam Chair, Trustee Nielsen, yes, there certainly is. Under the direction of Alex Harris, our Director of Student Development, with the addition of Gus Wessel, we have, as a part of the ORS presentation that all new degree-seeking students have to participate in, a briefing on security measures. Additionally, there's information that's sent by email to all of the students. Faculty assist with providing information in the classroom to students as well. Plus, we'll be drilling and have been drilling now more regularly on a basis about how to respond when it happens, what to do. We've come a long ways in a period of about 18 months with our safety measures here on campus.
Absolutely. Trustee Meyer?
Thank you. I'm so sorry we have to spend time and money on that, but it's wise management. 3 things for our board to think about. One is ACCT meetings in October in San Diego. I think what we were headed for was commitment from all our board members to attend. And so in looking at that, some of us are already registered. I know that deadline's coming up to when we should, to be more cost effective. Part of that registration does not include meals, so we probably ought to reconvene on which ones, because some of the speakers look like they're occurring at the meals that would be worth doing. And then airfares and so on, we'll figure out as we go. The other one was to highlight to you all, in Sandpoint last week, a new medical building, doctor's offices building, was opened to connect with the Bonner General Hospital. And in visiting there with some of their staff in the Women's Health Clinic and Human Resources people, I was doing my NIC board, which is how we doing and what can we do more of, and the feedback was very positive about what we are doing, more to be done, internships and so on. So it's always fun to represent the college that way, and I'll share some of these business cards with you, Lita, but good job. And the last thing was IBE, Idaho Business for Education, has put out a booklet and a newer version of Idaho Education Field Guide. The Albertson Foundation helped fund it. It just has some nuggets about how we're doing and what Idaho needs to do. I think one of the statistics that's interesting to me is Idaho ranks 46 in the proportion of students who graduate from high school on time, go directly to college, return for their second year, and graduate within 150% of program time. And I know that's one we're working on, but to be 46 is not where we want to be, so I'm glad that they're working on it. This is available for folks who want to take a look. I'm sharing it with each of the board members because there's lots more in there, particularly with the not professional technical, career technical, that aspect of programs that we're doing. There's certainly a need here in Idaho and some advocacy for that. So I'll be back in touch with you later on what we're looking for, and IBE is looking to do with legislation for this upcoming year to help with improving education and business folks championing that. Done.
Trustee Banducci?
I have 2 things, actually. One's kind of a concern / observation. I guess I'm just going to throw it out there. I was reading the Nick Now and reading about the diversity events at the Day of Welcome. And I know we've had this Common Read program going on, and I've been hearing about it and getting some feedback, and saw the book Nickel and Dimed and looked at that. And we talk about what's the term we use here, the adversity, the economic adversity that we have. And I guess my thought on the whole common read thing and that is that it says the mural's going to be there displayed on campus for the whole year to remind everybody of the realities of economic adversity in our college and community. What are we explaining regarding the cause of the adversity and the solution? And I just hope that we're not breeding us either a sense of entitlement or a sense of resentment. In the name of diversity, this could almost become a negative thing, and people could look at it and use the term adversity. So I'm concerned with that, and I hope that the common reading list is balanced, because if it's not, it's an interesting path that could lead us down, and if we're doing true diversity, I hope we're looking at it from both sides. And I guess that's my observation or my concern, is how that program and the time and resources and how that's working. And I know diversity is one of our 5 core missions, and it's interesting the different agendas that can come under that. So I just, I throw that out there, the common read. I hope it's a balanced reading list. And let's think about what we're going to have out there for an entire year and the terminology that we're using. Socioeconomic diversity, but then we go to the word adversity, and that's got a negative context. And again, that could create some other emotions. So maybe we just need to really think that through. The second thing is, since I've been on the board, one of the concerns that I've had is regarding professional services. And I did some research. I looked in, I don't know exactly when the last time we put it out, like for our accountants, Magnus and McHugh, but I did get some lists of our, for example, our costs for our attorney for the from 1999 to 2014. And then I think the last time we put out anything on that, an RFP, was the 99, 2000, 2001 timeframe. I think it had been Wetzel and Wetzel prior to that. And I guess one of the concerns I have is we need to have transparency, we need to be fiduciaries, and so this is not about Mark personally. It just kind of came up because he's changed firms, and I started asking, well, who's the contract with? Is it with the firm? Is it with Mark personally? Do we have a contract? And that elicited some interesting answers as to where we are with that. And so I looked at this thing and I said, well, it seemed to me that we would want to put professional services out for bid. And while we're at it, we want to confirm, create, or modify a formal policy and procedure that can be followed for a periodic RFP for professional services, all the professional services. It should be on a set, predetermined schedule that is published. Both the public and those interested in providing the services should be able to know what to expect and when. As a public institution with public dollars, if I'm in the community and I'm an accountant, I'd like a chance to bid on doing our audits and doing our accounting. If I'm an attorney, maybe I want to bid on our attorney services. If there's a lot of things we do in house. So but if I was grounds maintenance, if I was mowing the lawn, or food service, we talked about food service even being put out there. If it ever did come to fruition, then everybody should be allowed to bid on that, and there should be a recurring cycle of when that comes up. Not annually, biannually. There's a reasonable timeline for that. You don't want to disrupt, and there's a body of knowledge, for example, in Mark. So, and again, just because we put it out there doesn't mean we're going to change. You don't have to take the lowest bidder. You look at the entire package of the bid, experience, and everything else. But I think it behooves us to have that stuff formalized and have a policy and procedure that we follow. We have a policy on policies. Well, we should have something on professional services. So I'd like to have it as an agenda item, and I'd like to follow through on updating a policy and a procedure regarding professional services.
So is that a motion to put?
I would like to make a motion to add it as an agenda item.
Or
Yes, ma'am.
do I have a second to the motion?
Make sure I understand. All you're saying is you want to have an agenda item to discuss our policy for services and how we go about doing that? I don't know.
How and when we put them out for RFP, when the contracts are renewed, yeah, I'd like to have a discussion about an updated policy and procedure that formalizes that process.
We do not have one today, Joe?
We don't have a comprehensive policy that covers every contingency in which we would contract out for services. No, we don't.
And I think the reason behind that is because some of these decisions are left directly to the board or to the administration, and some services we don't feel need to go out for RFP. For instance, the board attorney relationship that we've enjoyed with Mr. Lyon, The board generally has always made the decision on who their attorney is going to be, and there is no appetite from the board to review that unless we're dissatisfied with our attorney, which we are not, Mr. Lyon, just for the record.
Say we were.
And so not every item comes up for a specific policy direction for contracts. Trustee Howard.
If we don't have a second, can I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, there was
Well,
one
but
more.
just for point of clarification, if what Todd's asking is to review our policies for service agreements, I think that we should have the opportunity to at least go through that. I think Mark is an incredible attorney, and in some cases, we need to be able to protect the services that are doing us an incredible job. So I don't see anything wrong with having an open discussion about that. So if that's what we're talking about, then I would second a conversation that would say, let's get on there and let's have a conversation. I'd rather get something out on the table, discuss it, say it's okay, we put it back in and we go. So it's not that we're challenged by the last thing, we're not attacking Mark or any other contractual arrangements we have. And if the policy is that it's at the choice of the existing board to extend our legal counsel's contract for the time in which the board's there, if that's our policy, I'm okay with that, but I don't know what the policy is.
Christie, for the record, I have talked to Mark. Mark knows it's nothing personal, and it's not.
Oh, no accusations there. So,
What's that?
no accusations.
Okay. Mark and I have talked a couple times about it.
So I have a motion. Is there a second to the motion to put it on the agenda?
I seconded it to put it on the agenda.
All right,
Would you repeat the motion, please?
certainly.
The motion is that I would like to have a review of the policy and procedures for the letting of professional contracts added as an agenda item.
So could you be a little more specific on professional contracts? Because there's a number of
Professional
professional.
services contracts.
I don't even know if that adequately defines it, but, okay, that's your motion. Review of policy of professional services.
Policy and procedure.
Policy and procedure. We don't set procedure.
Professional services contracts.
Trustee Howard.
Since we have discussion and we've got a second, I guess my reaction to it, Todd, quite frankly, is this. We have a lot of things to consider that are important issues that we're dealing with. If there was a problem, if there was some kind of a problem or a historical problem even with regard to the way professional contracts were handled, I would agree with your motion. But I don't see any problem. And quite honestly, when you start talking about professional contracts, you're talking about something that relates to a long-term relationship of not just ability and not just cost, but trust and an institutional involvement and institutional memory, and also how that professional fits within the community. If they're well accepted in the community, and we've been using them for a long time, I don't see the reason for creating a policy that reviews that on any kind of a regular basis. I just don't see a need for this. Now, having said that, if we vote for it, we'll have a discussion about it, but I would rather spend our time on something where there's an issue that we need to deal with.
Can I rebut that?
Well, certainly.
I think that's almost condescending in what you just said to me, Ken. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I've had several inquiries from the community, and people ask about these things. And I'll give you a more personal example, and maybe this will resonate, maybe it won't. Maybe your mind is already set, but we'll see. You're an attorney. Say that you had an interest in working with the college. Maybe you'd even like to be the board's attorney. But I'm going to tell you then, as a public institution, that we've made the decision that we're not going to give anybody else the ability to be that attorney. So you will never have the opportunity to try to acquire that job, to bid on that job, to be involved. Now, it's taxpayer dollars. You're a taxpayer. For you not to have the right or the ability to bid on that contract, I would think would bother you. Maybe it doesn't, but I just use that as an example. Now, you may not have that desire to be the board's attorney, but still, as a member of the public, tax-paying public, with taxpayer dollars in a public entity, that ability should exist. Now, in private industry, I have the ability, if I'm going to build water tanks, maybe I let Ron build on it or not. And I want great big water trucks, and maybe Ron bids on it, maybe he doesn't. Maybe I get 3 other bids. I get a guy from China, and a guy from Russia, and a guy from Europe and Iran. Or not, or I just go to Ron, sole source. I'm allowed to do that as in private industry. That's my choice. But in a public situation, I mean, I'm a product a little bit of my military background. I was the exec officer for a squadron, which means I was the budget officer for a year and a half of running an entire squadron, millions and millions of dollars. I was the guy in charge of that. And I bought everything from the toilet paper to the copy machine paper to whatever. But we still put the contracts out. The only things I didn't contract out were the utilities that I had to pay, because that was sole source. You know, you only get your water and power and gas really from one place. But we always went and bid it all out, and it was through the acquisition system. I hear you, and again, it's not a personal thing, and maybe we need to look at the broader. Maybe I need to understand what all the personal professional service contracts are that we have. Sometimes I'm a little confused as to what we contract out and what we have in-house. Again, I know there was a little bit of a furor when the food service came up as possibly being taken out of in-house and contracted out. So maybe it'd be interesting to know. It means grounds maintenance, maybe we do all that also internally. I'm not sure. But the fact that we don't have a schedule, a process for that, to me, makes it seem rather willy-nilly and just at our whim, whatever we want. And I guess I struggle with anything being willy-nilly and at our whim.
Well, Mr. Randucci, I think that you've kind of broken that down a little. That is not exactly, we're not willy-nilly, we're a professional organization.
Yeah, but it said you basically said at our whim.
The board decides who their attorney will be. However,
but we still would, even if it was put out, we'd have the final say.
so board members will give their opinions back and forth, and that's what this is meant to be, but at no time was Trustee Howard condescending. I would like to point out that there are several organizations, certainly cities, counties, have legal staff that are employees of the institution, and those positions do not change for the very reason that Trustee Howard mentioned, the institutional knowledge, the trust, and the efficiency by those individuals. And so it is not an unusual model to have long-term legal.
Mark's not an employee, though.
That's correct. However, we have
Well, that's a
chosen
big
as a board.
differentiation.
And I think this is inappropriate. We're getting to the level of inappropriate talking about a personnel issue, even though he's a contractor. I really don't want to make this about our attorney, Mark Lyons. So I'd like to move on. Trustee.
One other thought as we think about this, some of this is administrative levels.
Absolutely.
The staff should be deciding these things. I think at this point, at this hour of the night, may not be our best moment to make a decision. The topic, I think, is worth coming up again when we can better define what areas the board has responsibility for compared to what the administration should be doing. So,
well, what the motion is right now is if we want to review these professional contracts on our next agenda. So we have a motion and a second.
No, policy for.
Policy for developing these. And so the decision is whether we want to spend time on this agenda item. So at this point, I'd like to...
I'm not clear what the professional services, what that means, what those levels are.
No, it's policy is what he's requesting, not the contracts. So at this point, we need to vote on the motion. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Nay. All right, motion carries. All right, Board, if there's nothing further, I would adjourn. Oh, was there anything?
No, I was going to make a motion to adjourn.
Could I have your motion to adjourn?
Second.
And a second. Thank you. Adjourn.
Public is a healthy thing.
Trust.